Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. It's Stephen here, and today I'm going to be bringing you my top 5 unpopular Harry Potter opinions. So before we get into it, if you enjoy this type of content, please remember to click the thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already, please remember to subscribe. Okay, so before I get started, I want to say I am a huge Harry Potter fan. I've been a Harry Potter fan throughout my childhood, and I've read the book series on a number of occasions, maybe over 20 times. I've recently completed a reread of the series, and when I was completing my reread, it occurred to me that there was a couple of points throughout the series that I felt could have been done slightly better, which is always going to be the case. I mean, the series is 7 books long. There's always going to be parts that you disagree with or parts that you wish were done differently. I thought I'd compile this list of just some of the areas that I feel could have been just done a wee bit better. I've got some opinions that might be controversial, so I thought I'd put it in a video and see if anyone agrees with me. So number 5. Number 5 is my opinion that the Triwizard Tournament sucked. Okay, I will say that the 4th book is ridiculously fun. I really enjoyed reading the aspect of Moody and Bagman. The Quidditch World Cup was written so well. I love learning about other magical schools, other ministries. I really did enjoy the book as a whole. My biggest gripe about this is I just thought the Triwizard Tournament kind of sucked. So if you think about it, it sucked in my opinion as a spectacle, and it also kind of sucked as a ploy to get Harry into the graveyard. So the Triwizard Tournament was built as this amazing spectacle. It hasn't been ran in over 100 years, I believe, something like that there. It hasn't been at any of these schools. Everyone was excited about it. They cancelled Quidditch. This is the spectacle for everyone to sit and watch and enjoy. But as the task progressed, it occurred to me when I was reading it is if you were in the crowd watching the Triwizard Tournament, you would not get any enjoyment other than the first task. The first task was great. You got to see everyone go up against their dragon, you got to see them fight, and you got to see them prevail. The second task was underwater, and the third task was behind a maze that no one could see over. So I get for the purpose of the third task and what Moody was doing and the story, to move the story on, it was important that people couldn't see what happened in the maze. But as a spectacle, these guys are wizards. Surely there's a way for them to see what's happening in the second task and the third task. Was supposed to be a spectacle for everyone to enjoy. And it occurred to me when I was reading it is, if you were in that crowd watching that, you would think, why are we not having Quidditch? Why am I just sitting here watching nothing? Also, I did kind of feel that the ploy that Voldemort came up with, the evil plan to get Harry into the graveyard, to get him through the Triwizard Tournament where a million things could have went wrong, was just kind of silly. Like, I kind of feel that there was a million ways that Moody could have got Harry to that graveyard. Harry was alone with Moody I don't know how many times throughout the series. He even met him in Hogsmeade once. Surely it made more sense for Moody to just operate with Harry somewhere. I just feel that there was maybe better ways for him to get to that graveyard. So yeah, that's my opinion. I kind of feel like the Triwizard Tournament, as enjoyable as it was to read, it just didn't really make sense as a plot to get Harry to the graveyard, and as a spectacle, it probably kind of sucked for people watching it. Okay, so we move on to number 4. Number 4 is my opinion that Snape, he wasn't fully redeemed. Okay, so I will preface this by saying Snape is one of my favourite characters. I think he's written really well and he adds so much to the books. I love having a character that there's so many twists and turns with him, and I love the relationship he has with Harry. I love that dynamic to it. However, one slight issue I took with it was Harry going as far as naming his child after Snape. The only really reason I have this issue is I completely understand what Snape done for Harry. I completely understand that he sacrificed his life. I completely understand that he was in love with Harry's mother. But it doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that he wasn't a very nice person. So throughout the 6 books that we see Snape teaching, we really it really shows how much he bullied the likes of Neville, how much he bullied anyone who wasn't in his house. And if you think about the third book, when Neville went up against the Boggart, his deepest, darkest fear was Snape, which says a lot for the character and the man. That I get it. Like in the fifth book, Sirius made a good point to say that the world isn't made up of Death Eaters and good people. You can be a bad person and still be technically on the good side, which makes so much sense. And I believe that Snape falls into that category. I understand the sacrifice he's made, but he still wasn't a nice person. And I think this was evident to me during my reread. And I don't think Harry would have went as far as naming his child after him. I think if he maybe sat and thought about the treatment that Snape gave Neville, and things like this here, it really made it. And also the treatment that Snape gave to Sirius, I think that would have... I just couldn't see Harry naming his child after him, but that's my only point on that. So my next point, this might be a bit more controversial, and it's to do with our two main characters in Hermione and Ron. Both characters that I love, that are written really well, and the characters that we kind of grew up with. Harry, Ron, Hermione are characters that I grew up with reading. My point here is I don't feel that they necessarily work as a couple. One small issue I took with it is Harry ends up with Ginny and Ron ends up with Hermione. What are the chances of, we'll call it high school, what's the chances of two sets of high school sweethearts ending up together in a friendship group? I just feel that it's not really realistic. And I also feel that the evidence is there throughout the book that Hermione and Ron suck as a couple. They're two best friends. They're great as best friends, but all they do is argue throughout the whole series. They fight constantly. I don't think there's a book in which Hermione and Ron don't have an argument, which is great. It really adds to their character development. But to me, that just shows that as a relationship, I get why there would be an attraction there. They're so friendly, they get on so well, but I can see maybe long term they're very, very different people, and I just can't see that they work as a couple. It's just a small point, just my sort of understanding. I don't necessarily feel the same way about Ginny and Harry, and the reason why I don't feel the same way, I can't necessarily say I don't feel that they would work, is because we don't actually get an awful lot of them together throughout the series. In the sixth book, they only start going out towards the end of the sixth book, and there's not that many chapters or pages devoted to the relationship between Harry and Ginny, so it's hard for me to say whether or not I think that actually would have worked long term. But I think there's enough evidence to show that Ron and Hermione, although they're best friends, I just don't really feel that they would work in a relationship. Okay, so now we're getting on to something a bit more serious. This is my second last point. I believe probably many people that read the series, maybe people that are a bit more cynical, I believe Harry should have died at the end of this series. Harry Potter is a great character. The reason why we love Harry is because he's good. He's intrinsically a good person. The same as Frodo in Lord of the Rings. Frodo can only carry the ring because he's the only one that can do this. He's such a good person and he won't be manipulated. He's the only one who can destroy the ring. It's the same as Harry. Harry's the only person that is pure and good enough to come up and beat Voldemort. I just feel that the way the story was going, I feel like it would have been a more satisfying, a bit more brutal, but a more satisfying ending for Harry to die. I love the aspect of the fact that Harry himself was a Horcrux. He had that attached to him. But it just didn't necessarily, I feel like maybe JK wanted to kill him, but just couldn't do it. Just couldn't bring herself to do it. And I feel that it would have made for a better ending if Harry himself had have died. I think maybe as a teenage novel, it's probably a bit too much, but I just feel like it would have sold the series up better if Harry had lost his life at the end. Okay, so this, my final point is pretty much linked. One and two are linked pretty much together. I felt that during this reread, and I've never experienced this before, but I felt that the 19 years later bit was kind of awkward. I've already sort of stated that I believe Harry should have died, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't get anything from the ending. I am a sucker for happy endings, and I do get whenever Harry wins and there's the joyous celebration. I am emotionally attached to that, and I do get a reaction to it. However, whenever we skip 19 years later, it's only something I've been thinking about recently. So we met these characters when they were 10, 11 years old, and we grew up with them until they were 17. We knew them, we could see them changing throughout each book. So we knew the characters really well. We've seen Harry grow. We've seen Harry from a child who had no friends, meeting Ron on the train, still willing to share with Ron, even though he grew up in a household that was just a terrible, terrible childhood. He was bullied, he was tortured as a child, but he still grew up as a pure person, and it showed in the first book that he was willing to share with Ron. We've seen the growth of Hermione, we've seen the growth of Ron. My biggest problem with the 19 years later is when you skip 19 years ahead, whenever, you know, these characters are 38, nearly 40 years old, when we haven't seen these characters in 19 years, I'm immediately taken out of the story. I feel like whenever we meet Harry, we meet Ron, we meet Hermione, we meet Ginny at the train station, I feel like it's been 19 years now since we've actually met these people. We've actually learned about these people. I feel like I don't know who they are. Again, this might just be my personal thing, but if you think about it, whenever you're 17 and whenever you're nearly 40, you're a completely different person. And for me, it was a bit jarring to jump from Harry as a 17-year-old kid to nearly a 40-year-old man and still expecting to have that kind of connection and to know him. I feel like, again, my opinion, I feel Harry probably should have died, and I would have wrapped the series up in a slightly more logical way. But I do understand why JK went down this direction. But I just feel like the 19 years later, it was a wee bit awkward. It is, and during the latest reread, I felt that it just didn't really work for me. But yeah, guys, that's my top 5 unpopular Harry Potter opinions. I'll recap them here. So the 5th one is the Triwizard Tournament sucked. The 4th one is Snape sucked. The 3rd one is I don't really feel Hermione and Ron work as a couple. The 2nd one, Harry Potter should have died. And the first one, number 1, is the 19 years later was kind of awkward. So if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said, please jump down in the comments and let me know. I will say this, I would love to be wrong about every single point that I've made. I'd love for someone to write a comment as to why I'm wrong on every point, because I want another excuse to love the series. It's the favourite thing I've ever read. And I'll probably reread this, I don't know how many more times throughout the rest of my life. But yeah, please jump in the comments, let me know if you agree or disagree. Alright folks, peace out.
Thank you.